Now, you've included on slides 23 a series of text communications starting in the Lolly Time account at line 2487 from July 20th, 2019. Do you see those?
I do.
Okay. Why did you include these text communications?
These are relevant because they demonstrate some of the religious concepts that were at play in this investigation, particularly as it relates to children being designated as being possessed or inhibited by demons. In this case, they're talking about Melanie Boudreau's children.
Blake, was that one of Melanie Boudreau's children?
That's her son.
If you could please read those into the these text SMS messages from Lolly Time into the record.
Yes. Line 2487 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. What's Blake's percentage? Line 2486 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. He drew 3 crosses on the wall in his bedroom. We just finished painting over them. Line 2485 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell, like he was marking it for the dark side to find him. Line 2482 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. Blake is at 7. S-I, I took my sword of light and sliced his aura vertically in several places. You should be able to now rip and burn it. Line 2481 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. I also decreased his pain tolerance to 1% and greatly increased his pain. His desire to depart is at 80%.
I understand you've explained you included this to show a conversation about the darkness of children. Did this text communication have any more significance to you?
I think that it is fairly self-explanatory.
Okay. Moving to the next text communication on the next day that you pulled and included on slide 24. Can you tell us why you included this series of text or SMS messages from Lolly Time in your summary?
Yes, this is a short text string that is a follow-up in reference to the life insurance beneficiary change, where Lori Vallow is communicating to Chad Daybell that she now knows who the beneficiary of that life insurance policy is.
Can you read that into this text exchange on slide 24 into the record, please?
Yes. Line 2438 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. Found it. Ned gave all of it to Rhonda, 2/26/19. Line 2432 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. Glad you found that out. Line 2430 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. It fits. Now she will try to take him. THX for working on her. Work on me too. Reading all this stuff makes me sick. Line 2423 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. We will work hard on Rhonda when we are together. I will get her numbers as low as I can by Wednesday. Line 2419 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. Good, let's work on it hard.
Now, you indicated it was information about the life insurance account, but in your review of multiple communications of Lori Vallow and multiple communications of Charles Vallow, was there a common association with the name Rhonda?
Yes.
What was that?
Rhonda is the name of the entity or dark spirit that supposedly inhibited Kay Woodcock.
Okay. And so reference in here about Ned, that we've heard that before, that was?
Ned, the reference to Ned is Charles Vallow.
Okay. And the reference to Rhonda was?
Kay Woodcock.
Okay. And so it's an indication that Charles Vallow gave the insurance money to Kay Woodcock.
Exactly.
And the date that Ms. Lori Vallow found out it happened.
No. The date is indicative of the date that Charles Vallow changed the beneficiary of his policy.
Okay. Now, is there anything else of significance you wanted to review as to slide 24?
No.
Okay. Turning to the next conversation, I see a reference to James and Elena again. And I recognize you talked about this a bit on Friday, but since there's been a bit of a break, who are James and Elena again?
James and Elena are alternative names, James being Chad Daybell and Elena being Lori Vallow. The James and Elena story, which is contained in its entirety in the iCloud accounts, is partly historical, accurate information chronicling the events in the lives of Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow, and it's partly fantasy.
Okay. So when you say the James and Elena story, is it just, one or two emails? Was it easy to put that story together?
Well, it wasn't difficult to put it together, but it's several segments written over time by Chad Daybell and then sent to Lori Vallow.
Okay. And so when you say several segments, there would be a text message one day, an email another, an MMS another, spread across iCloud accounts.
I believe it was limited to just texts and emails, but yes, it was spread out over time.
Okay. And understanding that you were one of the supervisory investigators on this, did you task members of the FBI to help comb through the iCloud and find the parts of the James and Elena story?
Yes, I saw all of the James and Elena story in my review of the iCloud accounts, but in order to corroborate portions of that story, I assigned an analyst to accumulate the entire story and then go through to find corroborative data or evidence to indicate the accuracy of the story.
So in order for someone to see the entirety of the James and Elena story, they either have to be able to hop around the iCloud.
Correct.
Or they have to have somebody kind of take it from here and take it from this date and sort of put it together.
Yes.
Now, and forgive me, I just want to make sure I understand. I know a long time ago in the public, stories would appear kind of in periodicals. There'd be a segment in the paper one week, right? And then a segment in the paper the next, and over time you heard the whole story.
I don't object. This seems to be a narrative from the
I'm just laying a foundation, Judge.
I'm not done objecting here. And it doesn't seem like there's a question, Judge.
And I'll sustain that. It's an improper question at this point, Ms. Smith.
Understood, Your Honor. May I approach the bench not on that issue, but I want clarification on some procedures the Court outlined on Friday? Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Smith, you can ask another question.
Thank you. Agent, have you seen situations where stories are pieced out in a periodical over time?
Yes.
Okay. Is that similar to how the James and Elena story evolved?
Yes, over a fairly abbreviated period of time.
Okay. So there's no one text that any one person could go to that would give them the James and Elena story?
Correct.
Okay. And so in order to compile that would have to be like a summary of the James and Elena story?
Yes.
Okay. Now, turning to this text, could you please read the contents of slide 25 into the record?
Yes, line 2397, text from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. James and Elena had agreed to visit the temple the following morning. She returned to the hotel room, and after additional romance on the couch, they calmed their nerves enough to give each other a blessing. As James placed his hands on her head, he connected with Elena's true, eternal self. He knew he was in the presence of an exalted goddess who had returned to earth to perform a special mission. This mission included being with him, and they would progress together as translated beings. The full plan wasn't yet completely clear to him, but the immense power radiating from her confirmed his belief that she was among the greatest women in the universe.
And the communication it goes on to the next slide, correct?
Yes.
Could you please read slide 26 into the record?
Line 2395, from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. They embraced following the blessings, and the emotions they felt were a mixture of eternal bliss and celestial desire. The sexual chemistry was undeniable, but the spiritual unity was a glorious bonus for both of them. They had only known each other for 3 weeks, but two lonely, misunderstood souls had finally found their best friend that they could trust and confide in. Line 2394, from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. She loves it.
And it appears there's one more portion of that.
Correct.
Can you read us slide 27, please?
Line 2390, from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. They arrived at the temple, and they both felt they should do sealings together. They were soon seated in a sealing room facing each other. Elena looked so stunning as she smiled at him. She seemed calm, while he felt quite nervous. Their opportunity soon came to kneel across the altar from each other, and as the sealer pronounced those sacred words, James and Elena knew that they were now sealed as husband and wife for eternity. As the earthly sealing was taking place, a similar scene involving their spirits was happening on a higher plane, where they kissed and unified their souls. They knew they had just begun a new journey together that was eternal and never-ending.
We'll go back to each portion of that, but is this the entire James and Elena story?
No.
Okay. It's just a couple sections that occurred on July 21st of 2019.
Correct.
Because your summary of the iCloud was chronological?
Yes.
All right. So let's step back and look at slide 25. Why did you choose to include this part of the James and Elena story in your summary?
I included this slide because of the reference to the full plan not being completely clear to him.
Why would that be relevant to the investigators in the investigation?
The fact that a plan existed is relevant to the investigation and to the subsequent actions that took place over the course of time.
Anything else that, other than that there's discussion of what the plan was, and did you believe that to be a reference to a plan for what?
A plan on how they would progress together.
Was there anything else significant about this particular text?
The only other thing I would add is that this mission included being with him.
Okay. And in terms of the portion of the James and Elena story that is reflected on line 2395, why did you include this portion?
This I included for the reference that two lonely, misunderstood souls had finally found their best friend that they could trust and confide in, as a reference to their blossoming relationship.
Okay. Now, when you say a reference to their blossoming relationship, I thought they had met in November of 2018.
No, they met in October 26th through the 28th of 2018 at a conference in St. George, Utah. The second time that they met in person was in mid-November at a conference in Arizona.
Okay. And so if they had met in October and then again in November of 2018, why do you say blossoming relationship that as reflected in a text from July of 2019?
Because the James and Elena story is the history of their relationship. So he is talking about their second meeting where they had decided to attend a temple and do a sealing ceremony.
Okay. And did you see a response from Lori Vallow in response to receiving the James and Elena story?
That she loved it.
Okay. And at this point, how long has Charles Vallow been dead?
10 days.
Was Tammy Daybell still alive?
Correct.
Moving to the next part of that James and Elena conversation, you referenced the temple, and the text appears to reference the temple. Did the investigators follow up to obtain temple records?
Yes.
And were those temple records analyzed?
Yes.
What information of relevance to the investigation was obtained in the temple records?
Those records show that Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow attended the Gilbert, Arizona temple together on November 16th of 2019.
Would that have been
2018, I'm sorry.
2018, okay. And would that have been that second meeting you referenced?
Yes.
Okay.
Objection, this is speculative, Judge. Move to strike.
Overruled.
Is there anything else of relevance to this segment of this one text that's a part of the James and Elena story?
Yes, according to the story that in attending the temple on that date, James and Elena knew they were now sealed together as husband and wife, showing that they believed they were married.
And the temple records that you reflected that both Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow had been at the temple in Gilbert, Arizona in November of 2018.
November 16th.
Okay. At or near the same time?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you see, as reflected in slide 28, did you see any additional response of Lori Vallow about receiving this chronicle story of James and Elena?
Yes.
Is that what's reflected, or part of it reflected in slide 28?
Correct.
Okay. Can you please read that into the record?
Line 2388 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. It's making me so happy to read about our life that I am finally going to dance, missing you and loving you from afar. Line 2374 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. It was great. I feel free again. I love you more than ever and can't wait to be with you forever. I'm begging Father and Mother. That's my job tonight. Line 2373 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. I will be right beside you, begging just as much. I need you desperately.
Why did you include this part of the communication from the iCloud in your summary?
I believe it was relevant to show Lori Vallow's response to the segments of the James and Elena story.
Now, turning to communications on July 22nd of 2019, why did you include this series of communications from Lolly Time in your summary?
I included these communications because it contains a clear reference to the plans that Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow had to be together and disclosed a location where they intended to live as part of their plan.
Could you read to us in the record the contents of the text included on slide 29, and then I believe it also goes into 30.
Line 2352 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. Love you. Going with Garth in an hour to see Other Side of Heaven 2. Missing you desperately, but so excited to be with you. Line 2349 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. I love you. You will enjoy the scenery. Looks like Kauai a lot. Line 2346 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. Hopefully, we will be there someday soon together. Line 2345 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. That is the plan. Line 2344 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. And my greatest desire. Line 2334 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. Hi, darling. Back from the movie. We enjoyed it. I look forward to being on a tropical island with you.
So what significance did the reference to Kauai have to you in your review of the iCloud in context of the evidence that had been accumulated?
In the totality of the case, for the entire time span of the case, it's relevant because Kauai is the island where Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow traveled to be married, and that is the island where they were found after the children were known to be missing, and ultimately that's where Lori Vallow was arrested on some charges.
Okay. And so, but they were in Kauai when?
They were married in Kauai on November 5th of 2019, and after being contacted by the Rexburg Police Department for a welfare check on JJ, they traveled the very next day to Kauai.
And so, but this text communication referencing a future together in Kauai was in July of 2019.
Correct.
Again, Tammy Daybell was still alive.
Yes.
Was there anything else of significance on this particular slide?
No.
Moving to slide 30, what, if any, significance did this text communication have to you?
This series of texts is significant in that it is a positive affirmation that of their belief that Tylee is possessed by some sort of entity, and Lori Vallow is asking Chad Daybell to check on Tylee to see if that entity has been switched from her body.
In line 2276, was there also a reference to JJ?
Yes.
Okay. And that was in a text communication initiated by Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell, correct?
Yes.
And then line 2244 is a text communication from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell wanting Chad to check on Tylee.
Correct.
Okay. And then 2243, again, was a text from Lori Vallow initiating to see if Tylee was switched.
Yes.
Okay. And so when switched, just so that we're clear, in context of the defendant's communications, how did the defendant's communications use the word switched?
That was used to indicate one evil entity leaving the body to potentially be possessed by another.
Okay. And this is a text communication initiated by Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else of significance in this text line?
Do I need to read it in the record?
Thank you. I apologize. I missed that one. Yes, please.
Line 2276 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. Good morning. Missing you. Didn't sleep much. Need you to check JJ. Weird stuff happened in the middle of the night. It's like they distracted us with Blake. Line 2244 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. When you get home, check Tylee. She is being super sweet and helpful, and she cleaned her room. She got switched. Totally not her. Line 2243 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. See if she got switched. Line 2241 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. Yes, she was switched. Please let me know when you can talk, and I will explain it.
Now, turning to a conversation on July 26, 2019, do you see that reflected in slide 31?
Yes.
Okay. And that proceeds into slide 32, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why did you include this series of text communications in your summary?
This is, again, an occasion where Lori Vallow is asking Chad Daybell to check on her children based on their behaviors.
Could you read slide 31 into the record, please?
Line 2120, text from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. How are things at home? Line 2119, from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. She's fine. Need you to check JJ. She said he was calm and he watched movies all day, which he would never do. Line 2118, from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell, missing you.
Proceeding on to the text communication on slide 32, could you read those into the record?
Line 2117, from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. Missing you too. It is still JJ. I'm told she is lying about him being calm and watching movies. Line 2101, text from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. Mel knew. She called me. She felt the real Brighton last night and knew she was different. She was told I didn't want to tell her. She is taking well and knowing it is part of a big plan. She is amazing, although I'm still pretty upset over it. I love you, trying to hang in there, missing your kisses.
Now, between slide 31 and 32, why did you include these particular text communications in addition to checking on JJ and Tylee? Why did you include these two slides?
I included them because of the references to JJ and then the other reference to Brighton, who is another of Melanie Boudreau's children. Based on the content of that text, appears that Brighton has now been designated as being possessed by an entity.
And you say Melanie Boudreau's children. Was that child's father Brandon Boudreau?
Correct.
Now, it also says there's the word big plan. In context of the defendant's communications, what did big plan refer to?
It referred to those things that would take place in the future that were being planned by Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow.
Okay. Now, did you review the iCloud for, discussion of a plan or future together?
Yes, there are several references which I have included in the summary presentation to plans and the future.
Okay. And that use of the word plan was used by Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell?
Correct.
Okay. Any idea how many times?
No.
Okay. Turning to communications, also on July 26, 2019, reflected in slide 33, why did you include these particular communications?
July 26, 2019 was the day that Chad Daybell flew home after having spent a few days with Lori Vallow in Arizona. And this is the message that he sent these are the messages that he sent to Lori Vallow upon his return to his home in Rexburg, Idaho.
Could you please read those into the record?
Sure. Line 2066 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. I'm home, missing you immensely and feeling very tired, but I had a splendid time with you, my love. I will text again soon. Line 2059 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. Tonight I figured out who I feel like. I'm a grown-up version of Harry Potter who has to live with the Dudleys in his little space under the stairs. Every few weeks I get to escape and have amazing adventures with my goddess lover But then I have to return to my place under the stairs, feeling trapped. But I sense permanent freedom is coming.
As of July 26, 2019, Chad Daybell was still married to Tammy Daybell.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else of significance as to slide 33?
No.
Turning to communications that you included from July 27th from the Lally Time account on slides 34 and on slide 34, why did you include this text communication?
I included this because of, again, a reference to the timing of the events that took place in this case.
And when you say a reference to events that took place, what particular events took place that these would reference?
The events I'm referring to are the crimes that are alleged in this case.
And so could you read slide 34 into the record, please?
Line 2043, from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. From Mel B. From Father. My sweet daughter, you have done well. I am very pleased. You have been prepared for every moment and surrounded by those who love you. You need not fear the future happenings, for they are strategically placed out for your benefit. Be at peace and be still. Enjoy the little things. Have no fear of the unknown or of people's choices. You have overcome all. Things will be fast-paced and you are ready. I love you so much. Godspeed. Now, don't mind if I speed things up a bit. Line 2042 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. That is a very nice message Mel B received. I won't mind at all if he speeds things up a bit. Line 2038 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. Yes, I miss holding you in my arms, caressing and kissing you. I feel Mel's message was meant for us too. You are so wonderful.
Can you explain to us why you chose to include these texts in your summary?
There's a reference to a timing, a timeline, and speeding those things up.
Okay. And who was the reference to from Father?
That is a reference.
I'm going to object as this is speculative, Judge.
Sustained.
In your review of the iCloud account and the defendant's, Lori Vallow's communications with Chad Daybell and others, were there references referring to one or more of the co-conspirators as dad or father?
Yes.
And in the references between Lori Vallow and her co-conspirators, who did dad or father mean?
Chad Daybell.
Okay. Is that a reference to father from Melanie Boudreau in line 2043?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, it misstates the testimony. It misstates what's actually being read here.
I'll overrule the objection at this point. There was a foundation laid for the comment, and you can delve into that on cross if you'd like, Mr. Thomas.
Very good.
Anything else of significance on this that you want to make sure we review?
No.
Turning to the next slide, 35. I see you included a series of communications. Why did you include this section?
These texts are indicative of the relationship between Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow.
Could you please read the text that you included in to the record?
Line 1935 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. Are you mad, sad, what? Line 1934 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. I'm doing okay, just no privacy here to hardly text, and I'm missing you immensely. I feel good about the trip. Line 1933 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. I need a distraction while I'm waiting for you. I love you. Line 1932 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. Absolutely. I think you'll have a fun time.
And so you indicated that text communication seemed to be indicative in context of your review of the entire iCloud of the relationship between Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. How so?
At this point, we are a few weeks after Charles Vallow's death, and Lori indicates to Chad that she is waiting for him and is going to be taking a trip as a distraction while she's waiting.
And from the review of the evidence, did you see whether or not Lori took a trip?
Yes.
Where did she go?
The coast, California.
Ms. Smith, and I hate to interrupt, but before you publish the next slide, could I confirm that was the slide that had some potentially personal identifier information that needed to be redacted or have that removed? Would you confirm that before it's published, please?
Yes, Your Honor, it did. I can simply ask. It did not get redacted. However, it's pretty small. Can I redact it after, or do you want me to skip it and come back to it after a break?
Just make sure it's not published, please.
Okay.
Until it's been redacted.
Okay. Agent, if you could, on the next slide there appears, and I'm going to do a little leading here just to avoid publishing, if I may.
That's fine.
Okay. On the next slide there appears to be some documents that were found in the SMS, which included documents of life insurance policy. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Okay. Can you tell us what those documents are?
Those are two photographs, MMS messages that Lori Vallow sent to Chad Daybell, and they are the screenshots of life insurance policy showing the change of beneficiary from Lori Vallow to Kay Woodcock.
And the date on the images sent would reflect that they were in the iCloud or sent in the iCloud on July 28th of 2019. I'm reading from the slide. Image sent from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell, July 28th, 2019, 9:40 p.m., line 89. Does that sound accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's a second image sent a minute later on July 28th, line 88, reflecting another page and a beneficiary of Kay Woodcock.
Yes.
All right. Why did you include those images in your summary?
Chronologically, the life insurance issue had been discussed between Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow on two prior occasions, and this sort of concludes that as the photos that she sent to Chad Daybell to show that beneficiary change.
Okay. And so Lori is discussing the beneficiary on her now dead husband's life insurance with Chad Daybell.
Correct.
Okay. And then sending him proof of the change of beneficiary.
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I will skip past that and then we'll redact it and we can request permission to publish it at a later date.
All right.
Thank you. Now, turning to a text communication on July 29th, 2019, do you see that on slide 37?
I do.
Okay. Why did you include this text communication in your summary?
I included it because of its references to causing pain to children.
Okay. Can you please read those, the text communications into the records?
Line 1877 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. One question. Do you want me to cause pain yet to those 2 3s you're writing with? Line 1876 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. Probably hold off on then till we arrive. They will be mistake to deal with, but I'll text you if they start acting up and we can zap them. Line 1875 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. Miserable, not mistake. Line 1872 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. Sounds great. Yes, if they are going to act up, we'll at least give them a reason to scream. I love, cherish, treasure, and adore you. The wonderful memories just keep coming back. You are mesmerizing. Raphael is one lucky guy.
Now, on July 29th, was this the time, I think you had mentioned Lori Vallow was getting ready to take a trip?
Yes.
Okay. Who was she on that trip with?
Melanie Boudreau and her children.
Okay. Were Lori Vallow's children with her?
I am not sure if Tylee was present. JJ was with her.
Okay. And so when there's a reference to the 2 threes you're riding with, in context of the defendant's communications and her statements to Melanie Boudreau and her co-conspirator Chad Daybell, who did you believe those 2 threes were?
Objection is calling for speculation.
Sustained.
Did you review Lori Vallow's communications with Chad Daybell and Melanie Boudreau about this trip to California?
Yes.
Okay. And in that communication, did you have a chance to learn who was riding in cars with her?
They took one car with Melanie Boudreau's children and JJ. Again, I'm not sure if Tylee was present.
Okay. And we've seen previous text communications referencing Blake or Brighton or JJ as being possessed, correct?
We haven't seen communications yet regarding JJ being possessed, but yes to Brighton and Blake.
Okay. And so did you have an opinion on who the threes were that were in the car in light of the communications?
Brighton and Blake.
Okay. Why did you include this particular text string in the communications between Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow?
The references to hurting children and giving them a reason to scream are relevant.
Okay. In any of these references, and I think you've mentioned a couple of times that concept, did you ever see Lori Vallow protest, like, don't do that?
No.
Turning to additional communication on July 29th, 2019, why did you include this series of communications outlined on slide 38?
This is the final communication regarding this life insurance issue with Charles Vallow.
Could you please read slide 38 into the record, please?
Yes. Line 1844 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. From Kay in response to what I sent Larry. Are you angry at me? Charles did this. I told him I didn't want to be party to it. BC. Somehow I'd be made out to be the bad guy. Low. All I can say is he must have had a reason to do this regardless of what I said. INS company called me to notify that I'm beneficiary. Wanting JJ for memorial has nothing to do with money. We want him here even though he won't know what's going on because it's a memorial service for his dad. We feel when someone passes that their children attend services to meet/visit with people that loved them in life. And BC, we miss him, period. You have the only say in this matter. If for no other reason, you and I should be able to get along with each other. It doesn't need to be hostile. We miss him so much. I'll leave in the morning to get him if you'd allow it. I'm begging you, please. Line 1839 from Chad Daybell to Lori Vallow. Interesting message from Kay. She doesn't seem inclined to share the money. Hopefully Larry wants to talk to you. Line 1838 from Lori Vallow to Chad Daybell. They are jerks. I was going to say, I hope you are going to give all the money to the kids and not keep it for yourself. But it's fruitless. I'm not responding ever.
And so you included this as sort of the end of the discussion on the life insurance of Charles Vallow.
That's right.
Okay. After this, did you ever find any evidence that Lori Vallow responded to any messaging, text, emails, MMS to Kay Vallow? Kay Woodcock.
I did not.
Did you include this for any other reason?
No.
Your Honor, I certainly can keep going. We have a substantial amount more, but I'm transitioning to a new area. Do you want to take morning break now or just keep going?
Yeah, let's go ahead and take our morning recess.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
So we'll be in recess till maybe 10:35.
All right, please.